Commander Kyung-ho stood at the window of his ship, looking out at the stars. He had been waiting for this message for weeks. The communication device on his desk buzzed with an incoming transmission from the Galactic Military Council. He knew this would not be good news. The hologram appeared in front of him. A tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms appeared on the screen. This was Supreme War Marshal Thex Quinn of the Vorthak Empire. His voice was deep and cold when he spoke. "Commander Kyung-ho of the Human Defense Fleet," the alien said, "I bring you a message from the Galactic Military Council. We have decided that humans have expanded too quickly across our galaxy. You take planets and build colonies faster than any species we have seen before." Kyung-ho did not show any emotion on his face. He had expected this conversation for months. The aliens were getting nervous about human expansion. Humans had only been in space for 50 years, but they had already built colonies on over 200 worlds. "We do not break any galactic laws," Kyung-ho replied calmly. "We only settle on empty planets or planets where the local species invite us." The alien's 4 eyes narrowed. "This is true, but your species adapts too quickly. You change too fast. This makes the other species worried. We need to understand your military strength." Thex Quinn continued speaking. "The Galactic Military Council has decided to offer your species a challenge. We call it the 5 Trials. These trials will test human fighting ability against the established powers of the galaxy." Kyung-ho listened carefully. He knew this was not really a friendly offer. The aliens wanted to find human weaknesses. If humans failed these trials, the galaxy would use it as an excuse to limit human expansion. "What do these trials involve?" Kyung-ho asked. 5 tests, Thex Quinn explained. "First, individual combat. Second, small group tactics. Third, fleet coordination. Fourth, long-term supply management. Fifth, working with alien allies under pressure. Each trial tests what we believe are human weak points." The alien leaned forward on the screen. "If you refuse this challenge, the galaxy will see humans as afraid to prove themselves. This would not be good for future human expansion." Kyung-ho understood the threat. Refuse the challenge and humans would look weak. Accept it and the aliens hoped to prove humans were not as strong as they seemed. "I need time to discuss this with my commanders," Kyung-ho said. "You have 24 hours, Thex Quinn replied. The transmission ended. Kyung-ho immediately called his senior staff to the meeting room. Captain Nari arrived first. She was his best tactical advisor and had fought in more battles than anyone else on the ship. Lieutenant Commander Dongwoo came next. He ran the intelligence division and knew more about alien military tactics than any other human. "They want to test us," Kyung-ho told them after explaining the challenge. "But this is really about finding our weaknesses." Nari studied the challenge details on her tablet. "The trials are designed around what they think we cannot do well. Individual combat tests assume we are physically weak. Group tactics tests assume we cannot coordinate without technology. Fleet coordination assumes we cannot handle large-scale operations." Dongwoo nodded. "My intelligence reports show exactly this. The Vorthak think we rely too much on teamwork because we are individually weak. The Nexari think we cannot coordinate because we do not have hive minds like them. The Krell think we are soft because we do not have natural armor. The Zephyrians think we cannot compete with their computer-assisted warfare." Kyung-ho looked at his officers. "What they do not understand is that these are not weaknesses. These are different approaches." "Sir," Nari said, "I recommend we accept the challenge, but not for the reasons they expect." "Explain," Kyung-ho said. "These trials sound like excellent training exercises." Nari continued. "Individual combat against superior opponents. Our special forces train against much harder scenarios. Small group tactics in complex environments. Our soldiers practice this every week. Fleet coordination. We coordinate across multiple star systems regularly." Dongwoo smiled. "The aliens designed these trials to be difficult for humans, but they designed them based on wrong information about what humans can do." Kyung-ho thought about this. The aliens expected humans to struggle with these challenges. Instead, humans might find them too easy. This could work in humanity's favor. "There is something else," Kyung-ho said. "I want to contact General So-young before we answer." General So-young commanded all human military forces. She was the smartest military leader humanity had ever produced. If anyone could turn this challenge into an advantage, it would be her. The secure communication to Earth took several minutes to connect. When General So-young appeared on the screen, she looked tired but alert. "Commander," she said, I have already heard about the alien challenge through diplomatic channels. What is your assessment? General, they want to expose our weaknesses. But I think they have made a mistake. They designed these trials based on what they think our weaknesses are, not what our weaknesses actually are. General So Young nodded slowly. I agree. Accept the challenge, Commander. But do not just participate in their trials. Use them. Use them how, General? Turn their trials into our training exercises. Show them that what they designed to defeat us is actually easier than our normal training. Make them understand that if this is their idea of a difficult challenge, they have seriously underestimated human capabilities. Kyung-ho understood immediately. We do not just win their trials. We make their trials look easy. Exactly, General So Young said. And Commander, select your best people for each trial. Not just people who can win, but people who can win while making it look routine. After the call ended, Kyung-ho sat quietly for a moment. The aliens thought they were setting a trap for humanity. Instead, they had given humanity a chance to demonstrate capabilities that the galaxy had never seen before. He activated the communication system to reply to Thexquin. Supreme War Marshal, humanity accepts your challenge. We look forward to participating in your trials. When the transmission ended, Nari asked, Sir, what if they realize we are using their trials as training exercises? Kyung-ho smiled for the first time that day. Then they will understand that humanity is not just another species to be managed by the Galactic Council. They will understand that we approach warfare in ways they have never seen before. The challenge was accepted. Now the real work would begin. The transport ship landed on Keth Prime under a gray sky. Sergeant Major Ginny stepped off the ship and looked around the neutral world where the first trial would take place. The planet was mostly empty except for the large arena complex built specifically for these trials. Alien representatives from 4 different species had already arrived. Jin-A could see the Vorthak delegation with their blue skin and disciplined formations. The Nexari moved in perfect coordination, like they shared one mind. The Krell stood alone, each one massive and covered in natural armor plates. The Zephyrians stayed near their computer systems, always calculating and analyzing. Captain Taemin walked beside Jin-A as they entered the arena complex. Remember, he said quietly, they designed this trial to make humans look weak in individual combat. They expect you to lose quickly. Jin-A nodded. She had read all the intelligence reports. The aliens believed humans were individually weak and only succeeded through teamwork and technology. This trial would test individual combat skills with no help from others and limited technology. What they do not understand, Jin-A said, is that human individual combat training is not about being the strongest or fastest. It is about being the smartest. The arena was a large circular space with different combat zones. Each zone had different environmental conditions. Some had low gravity, others had obstacles, and some had unusual lighting. The alien observers sat in elevated seats around the arena, watching carefully. Supreme War Marshal Thexquin stood up to address the crowd. The first trial will test individual combat effectiveness. Each species will provide one champion. The champions will face opponents from each of the other species in single combat. He gestured toward the arena. The combat zones are designed to test adaptability and skill, not just strength. Each fighter will face challenges that require different approaches. Jin-A studied her opponents as they were introduced. The Krell champion was named Grokthar. He stood 3 meters tall and his natural armor looked like it could stop bullets. His arms were as thick as Jin-A's entire body. The Nexari champion was called Unit 77 Prime. She moved with perfect precision, and her reaction speed was faster than anything Jin-A had ever seen. Her species had evolved for coordinated swarm combat, making each individual incredibly quick and efficient. The Vorthak champion was Commander Zelthan. He moved with military discipline and carried weapons that were centuries more advanced than anything humans had developed. His forearms could handle multiple weapons simultaneously. The Zephyrian champion was Integration Node 12. He was connected to computer systems that could calculate battle outcomes faster than any biological brain. Every movement was perfectly optimized for maximum effectiveness. Now I understand why they think this will be easy, Jin-A said to Captain Taemin. Each opponent is superior to humans in a different way. Stronger, faster, better equipped, or smarter. What is your plan? Taemin asked. The same plan I use in every combat situation, Jin-A replied. Do not try to be better than them at what they do best. be better than them at what they cannot do at all. The first combat was between Ginny and Grokthar the Krell. The arena zone had low gravity and multiple levels connected by narrow bridges. Grokthar's massive size and strength should have been advantages, but the environment was designed to test adaptability. Grokthar charged directly at Ginny, expecting to overwhelm her with pure force. In normal gravity, his attack would have been unstoppable, but Ginny had trained in low-gravity environments since she was a child. She used the low gravity to move in ways that Grokthar could not follow. Instead of trying to match his strength, Ginny focused on his balance. Every time Grokthar committed to an attack, Ginny moved to where he could not quickly recover. She used his own momentum against him, redirecting his charges toward walls and obstacles. The alien observers watched in confusion. They expected Ginny to be crushed quickly by superior strength. Instead, she was making the Krell champion look clumsy and slow. Ginny noticed that Grokthar's natural armor had joints that needed to flex for movement. These joints were less protected than the rest of his body. She did not try to break through his armor. Instead, she targeted the joints that allowed the armor to move. After 10 minutes of combat, Grokthar was exhausted and off balance. Ginny had not tried to overpower him. She had simply made it impossible for him to use his strength effectively. When he finally fell, it was because he had worn himself out fighting an opponent who was never where he expected her to be. The second combat was against Unit 77 Prime, the Nexari speed fighter. This arena zone had multiple obstacles and changing light patterns. The Nexari's speed and reflexes should have made her impossible to hit, but Ginny had studied Nexari coordination tactics. Their speed came from predictable optimization patterns. They always chose the most efficient movement path. This made them incredibly fast, but also predictable once you understood their thinking. Ginny did not try to match the Nexari's speed. Instead, she positioned herself where the most efficient movement paths would take her opponent. She let the Nexari's own optimization work against her by always being in the spot where optimal movement would lead. The combat looked like Ginny was predicting the future. Every time Unit 77 Prime moved to attack, Ginny was already positioned to counter. The alien observers could not understand how a slower human was staying ahead of a faster opponent. After 15 minutes, Unit 77 Prime began making mistakes. Her optimization patterns were based on fighting opponents who tried to match her speed. Ginny's approach of positioning rather than racing was something the Nexari had never encountered before. The third combat was against Commander Zelton, the Vorthak military champion. This arena zone was filled with weapons and equipment that could be picked up and used. Zelton's forearms and advanced weapons should have given him an overwhelming advantage. Ginny studied how Zelton moved and fought. The Vorthak military doctrine was based on superior equipment and disciplined technique. Every movement followed established military protocols that had been perfected over centuries. But military protocols were designed for fighting enemies who also followed military protocols. Ginny did not follow any protocols the Vorthak recognized. She improvised constantly, using equipment in ways it was not designed for and attacking from angles that military doctrine said were impossible. Zelton's 4 arms could handle multiple weapons, but Ginny made sure he could never use all 4 arms effectively at the same time. She forced him to fight in spaces where his extra arms became obstacles rather than advantages. The combat lasted 20 minutes before Zelton made a critical error. He followed his military training and attempted a textbook combat maneuver that should have ended the fight. But Ginny had been waiting for him to follow his training. She countered with an improvised response that military doctrine had never considered. The final combat was against Integration Node 12, the Zephyrian computer-assisted fighter. This arena zone had complex environmental systems that changed constantly. The computer assistants should have allowed perfect adaptation to any changes. Ginny understood that computer systems were very good at calculating optimal responses to known variables. But computers had trouble with truly random or irrational behavior. She deliberately made choices that were not optimal, not efficient, and not logical. Every time the Zephyrian computers calculated her most likely next move, Ginny did something different. She used inefficient movements, wasted energy on purpose, and made tactical decisions that made no mathematical sense. Integration Node 12 became increasingly confused as his computer systems could not predict Jin'e's behavior. He was optimized for fighting rational opponents who made logical decisions. Jin'e was deliberately irrational in ways that confused the computer assistants. After 30 minutes, the Zephyrian champion was paralyzed by analysis. His computers were providing conflicting recommendations because Jin'e's behavior did not fit any combat models they had been programmed to understand. When all 4 combats were finished, Jin'e stood in the center of the arena while the alien observers sat in stunned silence. She had defeated representatives from all 4 major galactic powers, but not in the way anyone expected. Captain Tae-min approached her with a smile. "How do you feel about that performance?" Jin'e looked around the arena and then at the alien observers. "Sir, these scenarios are useful for basic combat flow drills. The low-gravity zone would be good for balance training. The obstacle course would help with movement efficiency. The equipment zone would be excellent for improvisation practice." She paused thoughtfully. "If we modified the parameters and added some environmental hazards, this could serve as an excellent warm-up routine for our special forces training." The alien observers heard every word. They had designed this trial to challenge humans at their weakest point. But the human champion was already discussing how to make it more difficult for training purposes. Supreme War Marshal Thexquin leaned forward in his seat. The trial meant to expose human weakness had instead demonstrated something the galaxy had never seen before. Humans did not try to be better than their opponents at what their opponents did best. Humans found completely different approaches that made. Squad leader Dalnim looked at the massive city that had been built for the second trial. The buildings stretched up toward the sky and the streets formed a complex maze. This was not a real city. It had been constructed specifically to test small group tactics in urban warfare. The alien observers had designed every detail carefully. There were civilian populations to protect, multiple objectives to complete, and limited resources to work with. The city was meant to create confusion and test whether human squads could work together without clear command structures. Specialist Hyunwoo checked his equipment one more time. "The briefing says we face 3 different types of enemy squads. Vorthak disciplinary units, Nexari swarm teams, and Krell assault groups, each one designed to show why human tactics will not work." Corporal Yoonji studied the city map on her tablet. The Vorthak squads use rigid formations and established protocols. The Nexari teams coordinate through shared consciousness. The Krell groups rely on individual superiority and direct assault tactics. Dalnim nodded. "And the aliens expect us to fail because we do not have any of these advantages. We do not have rigid discipline, shared minds, or superior individual strength. What we do have," Hyunwoo said, "is the ability to change our approach based on what we learn about our opponents." The trial began with Dalnim's squad entering the city from the south. Their first objective was to secure a communications building while protecting civilian populations. Intelligence reports said a Vorthak disciplinary squad was already in position around the building. Dalnim led his team through the streets carefully. The Vorthak were known for setting up perfect defensive positions and holding them with disciplined firepower. Any direct assault would fail against their superior organization and equipment. "There," Yoonji pointed to a building where the Vorthak had established their position. "They have overlapping fields of fire and established communication lines. Classic defensive doctrine." Dalnim studied the enemy position. "Their formation is perfect for defending against standard attacks, but it assumes the attackers will use standard approaches. Instead of attacking the Vorthak position directly, Dalnim's squad began changing the battlefield itself. They used the city's utility systems to create diversions in unexpected areas. They activated construction equipment to change the layout of nearby streets. They used the civilian populations as information sources about alternative routes. The Vorthak commanders watched in confusion as their perfect defensive position became less perfect. The humans were not attacking the building. They were making the building less valuable to defend. When the Vorthak moved to maintain their defensive advantage, they found that the humans had anticipated their movements. Hyunwoo demonstrated human tactical flexibility by recognizing that Vorthak discipline was both their strength and their weakness. They followed protocols perfectly, which made their responses predictable. By creating situations that their protocols did not cover, he forced them to make improvised decisions they were not trained for. After 2 hours, the Vorthak squad had abandoned their position not because they were defeated, but because their perfect defensive position no longer gave them any advantage. The humans had changed the tactical situation so completely that maintaining the position was pointless. The second objective involved rescuing hostages from a building controlled by a Nexari swarm team. The Nexari used their shared consciousness to coordinate perfectly, making them incredibly efficient at controlling large areas with small numbers. Yunji took the lead on this objective because she had studied Nexari coordination extensively. Their shared mind lets them optimize their positioning constantly. They always know where each team member is and what they are doing. Dalnim looked at the building where the hostages were held. That coordination makes them very efficient, but it also makes them predictable. The Nexari swarm operated like a single organism with multiple bodies. Each individual moved to optimize the performance of the whole group. This made them incredibly effective, but it also meant they always chose the most efficient solutions. Yunji began creating situations where the most efficient solutions would work against the Nexari team. She used the building's structure to force them into positions where their coordination became a disadvantage. When they moved to optimize their defensive positions, they found themselves more vulnerable rather than less. The breakthrough came when Unji realized that the Nexari optimized for mutual support. In normal combat, this was a huge advantage. But in the tight spaces of the building, mutual support meant that threatening one team member would force predictable responses from all the others. Instead of trying to fight the entire swarm team, Yunji focused on creating situations where their coordination would force them into traps. Every time they moved to support each other, they moved closer to positions where the humans were waiting. After 90 minutes, the Nexari team had been systematically outmaneuvered not through superior fighting, but through superior understanding of how their coordination worked against them. The final objective was the most dangerous. A Krell assault group had taken control of the city's power station. Krell warriors were individually superior to humans in every physical way. They were stronger, faster, tougher, and more heavily armed. Dalnim approached this challenge differently than the others. We cannot match them individually, but we can use their individual superiority against them. The Krell assault group was confident in their abilities. Each warrior was capable of defeating multiple human opponents in direct combat. Their tactics were based on overwhelming individual performance rather than complex coordination. Dalnim recognized that confidence could become overconfidence. The Krell expected humans to avoid direct confrontation because humans were individually weaker. This expectation made them vulnerable to approaches they would never expect. Instead of avoiding the Krell warriors, Dalnim's squad began engaging them in ways that seemed like direct confrontation, but were actually elaborate misdirection. Each engagement was designed to separate individual Krell warriors from their support elements. Hyunwoo used the power station's industrial equipment to create environmental hazards that would not affect humans much but would interfere with Krell mobility. Their superior strength became a disadvantage when the environment was designed to penalize heavy movement. Yunji exploited the Krell tendency to pursue individual combat victories. By appearing to retreat from direct confrontation, she led individual warriors into positions where their strength could not be used effectively and where their aggression left them exposed. The most effective tactic was using the Krell warriors' own superiority as a weapon. When they committed to attacks that should have overwhelmed human opponents, the humans were never where the attacks landed. The Krell found themselves destroying their own equipment and compromising their own positions. After 3 hours, the Krell assault group had been neutralized not through superior fighting ability, but through superior tactical thinking that turned their greatest strengths into weaknesses. When all objectives were completed, Dalnim's squad gathered for debriefing. The alien observers had watched the entire operation in growing amazement. The humans had not tried to match any of their opponents' advantages. Instead, they had found ways to make those advantages irrelevant or even counterproductive. Supreme War Marshal Thex Quinn reviewed the tactical recordings with his staff. The humans did not fight any of these engagements the way we expected, he said. They did not try to be more disciplined than the Vorthak, more coordinated than the Nexari, or stronger than the Krell. His tactical advisor replied, "Sir, they seem to approach each opponent as a problem to be solved, rather than an enemy to be overpowered." They analyze how each enemy's strengths work, and then create situations where those strengths become disadvantages. The most disturbing observation came from the Nexari representative. The humans were adapting their tactics during the engagements. They did not enter the city with a predetermined plan. They developed new approaches based on what they observed about our forces. Dalnim approached the observation area where the alien commanders were located. Sirs, these urban combat scenarios are excellent training opportunities. The multiple objective requirements help develop tactical flexibility. The civilian protection elements add good complexity. He paused thoughtfully. If we could add some additional environmental challenges and maybe increase the number of simultaneous objectives, this would make an excellent advanced training exercise for our urban warfare specialists. The alien observers realized that the humans were not just completing their trial, they were analyzing it as a training tool and finding ways to make it more challenging. The scenario designed to overwhelm human tactical abilities was being treated as a stepping stone to more difficult training. Commander, Thexquin made a private note to discuss these observations with the other alien leaders. The trials were supposed to expose human limitations, but instead they were revealing that human military thinking operated on completely different principles than anything the galaxy had encountered before. For the second time, the aliens began to wonder if they understood human capabilities at all. Admiral Boram stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking at the tactical display that showed 7 different star systems. The 4th trial was the most complex yet, a fleet engagement that would test human coordination at the strategic level across vast distances. The scenario was designed to be overwhelming. Multiple theaters of operation required simultaneous attention. Supply lines stretched across dozens of light years needed constant protection. Refugee populations required evacuation, while military operations continued. Enemy forces attacked from multiple directions using coordinated strategies. Captain Minho reviewed the logistics requirements from his station. Admiral, the supply chain management alone should be impossible. We need to maintain operations in 7 systems, while enemy forces actively target our supply routes. The math says we need 3 times more ships than we have. Commander Yujin studied the intelligence reports at her position. The enemy force coordination is beyond anything we have faced before. They are using Vorthak discipline, Nexari swarm tactics, Krell assault strategies, and Zephyrian computer assistance all at the same time. Admiral Boram nodded calmly. The aliens designed this scenario to require capabilities they believe humans do not possess. They think we need either rigid hierarchical control like the Vorthak or hive mind coordination like the Nexari. The alien observers had positioned themselves to watch the human fleet response from multiple angles. They expected to see human command structure collapse under the pressure of coordinating so many simultaneous operations. The Vorthak representative, General Thraxon, explained to his colleagues, "No species has ever successfully managed operations of this complexity without either absolute central control or shared consciousness. Humans have neither advantage." The Nexari observer, Collective Node Prime, added, "Our projections indicate that human individualism will fragment their response. They will be unable to maintain strategic coherence across multiple theaters." The Krell war chief, Brutak, was more direct. "Humans are weak individually. When forced to coordinate many weak elements across great distances, they will fail quickly." The Zephyrian strategic calculator, Logic Integration 7, had run mathematical models. Probability of human success approaches 0. The computational requirements exceed human biological limitations. What the aliens observed instead challenged every assumption they had made about warfare itself. Admiral Boram did not attempt to control every element of the operation directly. Instead, she established what the humans called commander's intent, a framework that allowed individual commanders to make decisions based on local conditions while maintaining strategic coherence. Each human commander received general objectives and operational principles, but they were expected to determine the specific methods for achieving those objectives based on what they encountered. This approach seemed chaotic to alien observers who were used to either rigid command hierarchies or perfect coordination. Lieutenant Commander Shung Ho demonstrated this approach in his supply operations. Instead of following predetermined logistics routes, he created adaptive supply networks that automatically adjusted to changing battlefield conditions. When alien forces attacked Supply Route Alpha, Sung-ho did not request permission to change routes or wait for new orders. He immediately shifted resources to supply routes Beta and Gamma, while establishing two entirely new routes that the enemy did not know existed. The fascinating element, Sung-ho explained to his staff, is that by attacking our supply lines, the enemy actually helps us develop better supply systems. Each attack forces us to create more efficient and more flexible alternatives. The alien observers watched in confusion as human supply operations became more effective under attack rather than less effective. This contradicted every principle of logistics warfare they understood. Commander Yu Jin's reconnaissance operations revealed another aspect of human military thinking that the aliens had not anticipated. Instead of simply gathering intelligence about enemy forces, her units were using the reconnaissance operations to test new sensor technologies and communication protocols. Each enemy contact gives us data about their capabilities, Yu Jin reported to Admiral Boram. But more importantly, each contact lets us test improvements to our own systems. We are using this trial as a testing ground for technologies that could revolutionize space warfare. The most disturbing revelation for the alien observers came when they realized that the humans were treating the complex scenario not as a maximum challenge, but as a testing environment for even more advanced concepts. Admiral Boram coordinated fleet movements across 7 systems while simultaneously running what she called experimental protocols. New approaches to fleet coordination that went far beyond what the scenario required, Admiral, Captain Minho reported. The new distributed command protocols are working better than our simulations predicted. We are maintaining strategic coherence while allowing more tactical flexibility than we have ever achieved before. Excellent, Admiral Boram replied. Make sure all fleet commanders document their innovations. When we return to human space, we will want to incorporate these improvements into our standard training. The alien observers held an emergency conference during a brief operational pause. The humans were not struggling with the scenario complexity. They were using it as an opportunity to develop military capabilities beyond anything the galactic powers had ever imagined. General Thraxon reviewed the tactical reports with growing concern. The humans are not following any command structure we recognize, yet they maintain better coordination than our most disciplined formations. Collective Node Prime was equally confused. Their individual commanders make independent decisions, yet somehow these decisions support an overall strategy. This should be impossible without shared consciousness. War Chief Brutak had observed something that disturbed him even more. The humans are not fighting this battle with maximum effort. They are experimenting. They are testing new ideas while fighting a battle that should require all their attention. Logic Integration 7 had reached a conclusion that challenged his entire understanding of military science. The humans appear to be treating this maximum difficulty scenario as a training exercise for challenges that are even more difficult. The trial continued for 6 more hours. During that time, the alien observers witnessed the humans successfully coordinate refugee evacuations from 3 systems while maintaining offensive operations in 4 others, adapt their supply networks to function more efficiently under constant attack, and develop new fleet coordination methods that allowed better performance with fewer ships. Most importantly, they watched human commanders continuously modify their approaches based on what they learned from enemy responses. Unlike alien military doctrine that optimized for known scenarios, human doctrine seemed designed to create better solutions for unknown scenarios. When the trial concluded with complete human success, Admiral Boram addressed the alien leadership through the communication system. Supreme War Marshal Thex Quinn, we thank you for this excellent training opportunity. The scenario complexity provided ideal conditions for testing several experimental coordination protocols that we have been developing. She continued, we would be interested in discussing the possibility of establishing permanent training partnerships. These trials represent basic-level coordination challenges that could serve as foundational training for the kind of complex operations we anticipate facing as we expand deeper into the galaxy. The alien leaders exchanged shocked glances. The scenario they had designed to overwhelm human capabilities was being described as basic-level training by the human admiral. Supreme War Marshal Thex Quinn found himself facing an unprecedented situation. The trial designed to expose human limitations had instead demonstrated that human strategic thinking operated on levels that exceeded anything the galactic powers had previously encountered. For the first time since the trials began, the alien leadership began to consider a disturbing possibility. Perhaps the question was not whether humans were ready to join galactic civilization, but whether galactic civilization was ready for humans. The implications of human military adaptability were becoming too large to ignore. The aliens had designed trials to contain human expansion, but instead they were discovering that human military philosophy could revolutionize how the entire galaxy approached warfare. The final trial would determine whether this was an opportunity to embrace or a threat that required immediate response. General So-Young arrived at the trial location aboard her command ship, the largest vessel in the human fleet. The fifth trial would be different from all the others. It would test multi-species cooperation under extreme conditions with unknown threats. The alien high command had designed this final trial as their ultimate test. They believed that human unpredictability would become chaos when humans were forced to work with alien allies who thought differently, fought differently, and operated under completely different command structures. Captain Kyung-ho greeted General So-Young as she stepped onto the station platform. General, the alien volunteers for this trial include Vorthak disciplinary units, Nexari coordination teams, Krell assault warriors, and Zephyrian tactical analysts. Each group operates under completely different military principles. General So-Young studied the alien volunteers who had agreed to participate in the joint exercise. And the scenario involves first contact with aggressive unknown forces that require immediate cooperation between species who have never worked together before. The trial scenario was designed to be impossible. An unknown alien fleet had appeared at the edge of the test system and was approaching with hostile intent. The combined forces had only hours to establish cooperation protocols, coordinate different fighting styles, and present a unified defense against an enemy about which they knew nothing. Supreme War Marshal Thex Quinn addressed the mixed groups of humans and aliens. This exercise will test whether different species can work together effectively under pressure. The unknown enemy forces will adapt to your tactics, requiring constant cooperation and communication between different military doctrines. General So-Young took command of the combined exercise, but her approach surprised everyone present. Instead of trying to impose human methods on the alien allies, she began by studying how each species operated most effectively. Captain Kyung-ho, she ordered, work with the Vorthak units to understand their optimal operational parameters. I want to know how their discipline and organization can be used most effectively in combined operations. Major Yoon Seo, she continued, coordinate with the Nexari teams. I want to understand how their coordination abilities can enhance our tactical flexibility rather than compete with it. The alien observers expected this approach to create immediate conflict. Each species had military doctrines that seemed incompatible with the others. The Vorthak required clear hierarchies and established protocols. The Nexari needed collective decision-making and shared objectives. The Krell functioned best with individual initiative and direct action. The Zephyrians operated through calculated analysis and optimized responses. Instead of conflict, General So-Young began creating hybrid tactics that used each species' strengths to support the other's capabilities. Captain Kyung-ho worked with Vorthak Commander Velthar to develop coordination methods that used Vorthak discipline as a foundation for operations that allowed human units to be more flexible. Rather than forcing the Vorthak to be more adaptable, the humans used Vorthak reliability as a stable base that allowed more experimental tactics. The human approach is remarkable, Commander Velthar reported to his superiors. They do not ask us to change our methods. Instead, they find ways to make our methods more effective by combining them with their capabilities. Major Yoon Seo demonstrated this approach with the Nexari coordination teams. Instead of competing with their shared consciousness, she created tactical frameworks where Nexari coordination became a force multiplier for human adaptability. Collective Note 8. The Nexari team leader was amazed by the results. The humans have found ways to use our coordination to enhance their tactical flexibility, rather than limit it. We maintain our shared consciousness while they maintain their individual initiative, but both capabilities work together. The breakthrough moment came when the simulated unknown enemy began adapting to the combined tactics. This was the ultimate test. Could the mixed species force continue to cooperate while facing an enemy that learned from their strategies and developed countermeasures? In traditional galactic warfare, adaptation meant changing to predetermined alternative tactics. Each species had backup plans and secondary protocols that could be implemented when primary strategies failed. The human-led coalition did something completely different. They began developing entirely new approaches in real time, using enemy adaptation as information to create better solutions rather than just different solutions. Specialist Wu Jin coordinated with Krell Warrior, Thok in ways that used both human tactical flexibility and Krell individual superiority to create engagement methods that neither species could achieve alone. When the enemy adapted to their initial approaches, they used that adaptation to develop even more effective combinations. The human tactical thinking is unlike anything we have encountered, Thok reported to his war chief. They do not see enemy adaptation as a problem to overcome. They see it as information to use for developing superior responses. The alien observers watched in amazement as the combined force not only maintained cooperation under pressure but actually improved their effectiveness by using enemy countermeasures as catalysts for innovation. Logic Integration 7, the Zephyrian representative, had been running constant calculations throughout the exercise. The mathematical models are unprecedented, he reported. The combined force is achieving effectiveness levels that exceed the sum of individual species. Capabilities. The most remarkable demonstration came when the unknown enemy forces began using advanced tactics that none of the galactic species had ever encountered. Instead of being overwhelmed by superior enemy capabilities, the combined force began developing responses that incorporated elements from all species' approaches. General So Young coordinated operations that used Vorthak discipline for strategic stability, Nexari coordination for tactical precision, Krell strength for decisive action, Zephyrian analysis for optimal timing, and human adaptability for continuous innovation. When the trial concluded with overwhelming success, the alien leadership faced a decision that would change galactic history. Supreme War Marshal Thex Quinn addressed General So Young in front of all the observers. General, these trials were designed to test human military capabilities and determine humanity's role in galactic affairs. General So Young nodded. We understand, Supreme War Marshal. And what have you determined? We have determined that we asked the wrong question, Thex Quinn replied. We wanted to know if humans were ready to join galactic civilization. Instead, we have discovered that galactic civilization may not be ready for what humans can contribute. He continued, your species approaches warfare in ways that could revolutionize galactic defense capabilities. These trials have demonstrated that human military philosophy represents not just a different approach to conflict, but potentially the foundation for entirely new forms of cooperative defense. General So Young smiled. Supreme War Marshal, we would like to make a proposal. These trial scenarios have been excellent training exercises for our forces. They represent foundational challenges that could prepare the galaxy for threats beyond our current understanding. We propose establishing the Combined Species Military Development Program, with shared facilities for developing new tactical approaches that incorporate the best capabilities from all galactic species. The alien leaders conferred quietly among themselves before Thex Quinn responded. General So Young, the Galactic Military Council accepts your proposal. We would like to begin with establishing permanent training facilities based on these trial scenarios. Excellent, General So Young replied. We recommend starting with what we call basic combat conditioning exercises, modified versions of these trial scenarios that will serve as introductory training for the new combined tactical approaches. 6 months later, the facility on Keth Prime had been expanded into the Galactic Combined Military Training Center. Human instructors led mixed species units through exercises that had evolved from the original trial scenarios. Commander Kyung Ho watched a training session where human, Vorthak, Nexari, Krell, and Zephyrian soldiers worked together on combat scenarios that would have been impossible for any single species to complete alone. It is remarkable, he said to Captain Nari, who had been promoted to Director of Tactical Innovation. The aliens designed these trials to expose our weaknesses and justify limiting our expansion. Nari nodded. Instead, we turned their trials into the foundation for a new approach to galactic defense that benefits everyone. The final scene showed Sergeant Major Jin A leading a mixed species squad through an advanced version of the Original individual combat trial. The scenario had been modified to include environmental hazards, multiple objectives, and adaptive enemy responses that made the original trial look simple by comparison. Remember, Jinae instructed her mixed-species students, this is just a warm-up exercise. Once you master these basic scenarios, we will begin training for the really challenging situations we might face as we explore deeper into the galaxy. The trials that were meant to defeat humanity had indeed become routine. Routine training that was preparing the galaxy for challenges that the original designers had never imagined possible. Supreme War Marshal Thex Quinn filed his final report on the human